And you've just heard Dance Economy by Broxden Knocks. And I'm joined now by Gary and Colin Robertson, who are Broxden Knocks. Hello, both.
Hello, how are you doing?
Oh, good. Really good, thanks. So tell us about Dance Economy.
So we've usually done kind of more hip hop songs, but Gary made this kind of beat, this instrumental, and it had me sort of, as I say in the words, shaking my shoulders and that. So I thought, well, just make it. I'll form the lyrics around the kind of groove of it. So I just started talking about that way when you want to get up and dance, but you can't be bothered really. So you're just kind of tapping a leg or something like that. So it pretty much it all came from Gary's instrumental.
So it's an interesting kind of thing, because when I was listening to it, I thought, is it that time where you thought, I've not had a drink yet, I'm not ready to get up on the dance floor?
Yeah.
That is, yeah, that kind of bit of hesitation there, yeah.
Yeah.
And tell us how you break down Broxden Knocks. How does it work between the two of you?
Okay, yeah. So also, by the way, thanks for having us on the show. So yeah, I kind of make the beats, the instrumentals, and then I'll kind of send them to him, and then he'll form some sort of verses or like a hook or something. And then just kind of then collaborate together kind of beyond that. So I've started recently, nothing's been released yet like this, but I've started doing a bit of singing myself. So in the future, you might hear my own velvety tones. So yeah, it's kind of like that. Colin kind of focuses on the words, and I kind of do the kind of instrumentation side of it.
And you're quite happy with that, Colin, that he's going to be...
yeah, definitely. I think it adds a bit more dynamics when there's two voices as well.
Oh yeah, I know, absolutely. What's it like working together? You know, have you been doing, aside from Broxden Knocks, I was going to ask you the question that someone once asked the Bee Gees, the Gibb brothers, how did you meet? Which I thought was one of the classic questions ever. But have you kind of done stuff together and it works well together, the two of you?
Yeah, so when I first set eyes on Colin when I was about 5 as a baby, I thought this is going to work.
Yeah.
The whole vision just went from there. But yeah, I think the key thing with any kind of collaborative thing is communicating. So if there's something that maybe I'm not so keen on, or vice versa, then we'll try and nip it in the bud, or we're trying to get better at doing that. But yeah, so yeah.
And from you, Colin, how, straight away were you keen to get involved? And did you understand that this was your role?
So I suppose it first started because Gary was making music on his own, then went on to study music production.
All right.
And then on my side of it, I was just a big fan of music, and then specifically got really big into hip hop, especially in my years at college. And then I ended up doing a dissertation kind of based on hip hop and society. And then I can't remember how it first came about that we made a song together.
Yeah, we were trying to think about this recently. And I think part of it was to do with lockdown, possibly. Because when we were kind of properly in work mode and college mode, but individually, there's not the same time to be like, oh, wait a minute, we should try and actually maybe do something here. So I think the first song we released was called Summer Paradise. And I think I just was recording something, gave it to Colin, then Colin quite quickly came up with a hook for that. And we released that one in 2020. And I think it just kind of slowly progressed from there. And at the moment, like, we have Dance Economy and Off My Head out in 2024. We've also got some other singles coming up as well, which we'll maybe get into later on.
Yeah. And it's more, would you say, for me, it's more towards the kind of chilled out end of hip hop, kind of, not ambient, but kind of more slow area of things. Would you think, is that a fair way of describing it? And who are your influences in that way?
Yeah, it doesn't feel, I mean, I do like kind of the harder hip hop, as people would call it as well, but it doesn't feel as me or us doing that sort of stuff. Although we've done a couple that hit a bit harder, and I'm sure we will in the future. We've actually got one that's a bit more
completely different.
I want to say it's not aggressive, but than what we've done. But yeah, when it comes to influences, I think my top's always been Kendrick Lamar, in the kind of rap world, and then there's a duo called Run the Jewels, Outkast, as seen on the poster behind. But then other artists like someone like a David Bowie, where like he's got different sounds. It's quite a versatile sound that he's got across his whole, like all his albums. And what I think what really connected us, or not connected us, but a band at the start that we really connected on was Linkin Park.
Right.
Yeah, which was, so we kind of grew up more into rock music, coming from our dad who was into like Eric Clapton or Genesis.
Yeah.
And then we started listening to some heavier stuff like Guns N' Roses and Aerosmith. And then Gary came across Linkin Park, and it was like heavy, but then we're like, what's this guy rapping? Like, what is this?
Yeah.
And then from there, we then found like Biggie Smalls, Tupac, Eminem, and all these sort of artists, and then just went down the whole hip hop rabbit hole. And we still big fans of rock music and all types of music, but I think Linkin Park was definitely a big one.
Yeah, Linkin Park's quite the kind of fusion of the two styles, and for me personally, like along with some of the ones that Colin said, hearing artists like DJ Shadow, who just does like kind of a lot of sampley stuff, but he doesn't have his own like voice really on the beats. Like, I was kind of like, oh wait a minute, maybe I could try something where I don't need to put my voice out there. So yeah, for me that was like, I suppose like movie music as well is a big influence. Like people like Thomas Newman, Hans Zimmer, of course, like just the emotions that they can convey, like, and then twinned with the video as well on screen, I just think is amazing.
So how do you kind of take the essence of all those influences and then make something of your own? How does that kind of transpire?
So I think what for us at the moment, we're kind of at the start of, I feel like we're maybe at the start of kind of finding our sound.
Right.
And it is something that I'm quite keen is to kind of almost narrow it down a little bit more, because we're kind of doing little kind of different vibe things. And then, so I suppose it is difficult to actually kind of take all those influences and put them into one thing. I think that's not really.
Sometimes it kind of comes naturally almost without realizing it. There might be like a chord progression you've done that's very Thomas Newman-esque or something. Or there might be a a flow that's very Run the Jewelsy or whatever.
And so I guess, I mean, you're at this the stage, and this probably never stops, is as you're making the music, you're learning more about your music, about yourself.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. The last like fortnight or so, I feel, I don't know if I'm speaking just for myself here, but I feel like with the stuff we've been working on, I'm starting to feel like there's a sound that we're developing. Would you?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah.
And I think, just like with any artist, if I'm trying to think of an example, let's go with there's a Bob Marley poster up here, which you can't actually see, but there's a Bob Marley poster. If he released, well, obviously he won't right now, but if he was to release like a jazz album, you'd be like, oh, it's not like I don't like it, but it's not what I was really expecting from you, Bob, there. So I think that it's something that we're kind of working on trying to narrow it down.
Yeah, and that's interesting. And it's the expectations of the people at the time, and then you kind of contrast that with if an album. Bowie's a great example. You know, there was a lot of times when he would release something that people went, oh, well, that's not what I want them to do. Your bands like U2 did the same thing.
Yeah.
And looking back, they go, oh, that was great. That was the change, you know, so that kind of thing. It's kind of almost sticking to your guns in that way.
Yeah.
And tell us about Theme Attic, because I was reading your press release and that kind of jumped out at me as an interesting thing.
So it was at the start of this year, we decided we wanted to release more music pretty much. And that started as we thought we'll just do, Gary will make a beat, I'll do a verse, and it'll be like on a specific theme. And we recorded them in an attic, which we're in right now. So we've called it Theme Attic. And it was kind of a bit more kind of wacky and playful, these ones. The first one, what was the first one?
First one was was called Saturday.
So it was literally the story of running through a Saturday. There was one that was about springtime coming. We put out a question of like, has anyone got any suggestions? And a group called Distant Images suggested Apocalypse. So we did one based on that. We had one
Lego.
Yeah, Lego,
Harry Potter.
Harry Potter. So it was kind of more kind of wacky and silly, but it was kind of, it got the creative juices flowing for both of us of kind of a bit more rapid fire of making an instrumental, coming up with lyrics, recording it, and putting it out there. And then we did videos for each one as well on Instagram and TikTok just to kind of go with it. So yeah, it was almost like a creative exercise in some ways, but it also worked out to have kind of 10 mini songs, and we ended up just putting them on streaming platforms as well afterwards.
I mean, it sounds almost like kind of improvisation that people might do. You're like, it's quite challenging as well, which is a great thing.
Yeah, like there was a couple of the ones that definitely a bit more difficult than others. I think more so for Colin, like with the words and like fitting it in, and like finding enough references within the subject to not make it sound like it's going off topic. I think as well, actually just releasing something for me personally is a bit of a hurdle sometimes. So getting that kind of form to just be like, just to let go, I do struggle with that sometimes. And I think with this, it was kind of like, right, Colin would be like, oh, Gary, we've just put it out, and I don't want to stress too much about like overly producing it and just kind of leave it. And it was something quite freeing about doing that rather than like stressing over it. Like it's out, it's a minute long or so. People can listen to it if they want. And it definitely has helped, I would say, with these singles that are now coming out, to kind of build on that.
So it's like, you're not saying this is official Broxden Knocks. This is something that's a side thing that we can do, that we're really enjoying doing, and we put it out and people can, and where can people find it? Because you mentioned videos as well. Where's the best place for people to find it?
We've put them on Instagram at broxden.knocks, and then TikTok just at Broxden Knocks, and they are on YouTube as well, all the videos. And then if you just want the songs, they're on Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, and all that as well. I think probably Instagram is probably the best place to find them, or TikTok
for the actual, but for the videos, because that kind of obviously kind of goes along with it. But it's like what the actual kind of it's gone down on Spotify as an album, which was, I didn't ever think my first album would be that, but it's 10 tracks, 10 minutes. That's kind of how I'd market it. It's it's a quick listen, and it's quite a lot of different subjects.
And I guess some of that will feed into the other stuff, the kind of, for want of a better word, main stuff that you do, because you'll discover things by making that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
There's definitely, we both said definitely there. It's just to hammer home that point. Yeah.
It is absolutely. And you mentioned how kind of, Gary, about releasing music and how that's kind of stressful in a way. You know, you want to make sure. How do you approach it? You've released, there's been an EP, right? I think, and then you've got 2 singles in 2024. Do you have like a kind of plan, or is it just that this is ready to go now and it's time to release it? How do you do that?
So right now we're starting to kind of we're trying to kind of finalize some to then have like a kind of more regular schedule of uploads. So we've got a single coming out. Oh, I'm getting confused with dates. So the 17th of May, is that next Friday? Yeah, next Friday.
Yeah.
We've also got a collaboration that we're doing, which is now completed with a producer in America who he's studying like audio engineering.
Okay.
And he approached us with a beat, and then we've been collaborating on that. So that's coming out the week after that. But in terms of knowing when something's finished, I think
I feel like we start an idea, I'll do something on it, and these ideas kind of float about, and then we're kind of at a point where we're like, which one do we want to pick and focus on kind of properly finishing it up. So at the moment we've got like quite a few tracks floating about, and then it's just a case of finalizing them So there's not like a specific schedule we have in mind. We just know we want to release stuff more frequently. And I think at the moment we're just going to focus on doing singles.
Mm-hmm.
But then down the line, definitely would like to do like a proper album.
Yeah.
It's a bit more kind of concise and things.
Yeah, because the influences that you talked about earlier on, they all, you know, I made classic albums
Yeah.
all the way. Yeah. And have you played live? Do you play live?
We've not yet. I think it's something we do want to do. I think we'll probably start maybe by doing like streaming it live, if you know what I mean, and then down the line, hopefully doing full live performances. It's something we've got to properly kind of figure out how we do it, like, because in hip hop, it's often there's a DJ that would have the track on, and then the rapper does the rap. But then sometimes you get a full band, but obviously we're not a full band.
Yeah.
But then Gary could play it live, and then we just do it on top. We need to figure that out. Like, I know. Do you know Mark Revier at all?
No, I don't think so.
He's a musician in America who does stuff completely
improv.
Yeah, completely improvised. And I think that's probably been a bit of an influence as well for Gary. But we're thinking maybe we could do something like that. But it's definitely something we want to do, but we need to figure out the kind of logistics and things.
We kind of recorded ourselves a couple of weeks ago doing kind of almost like an acoustic cover of some of the songs that we've done, just to kind of get used to doing that, because I think it's something that we're both very excited to try, but it needs to be kind of at the right time. We'd want to sort of not prepare enough, but yeah, we'll let you know whenever we do an Instagram live. And
Definitely.
for our debut.
It does sound like music that it would be fantastic to see live. I think, you know, it does. It sounds that way to me anyway.
Thank you.
And what's the music scene like up in Dundee at the moment? Do you feel part of a scene, or does it not feel that way?
I think we're not. I wouldn't say we're kind of part of the scene, but we're kind of in touch with different people who are kind of working on stuff. There's a couple of people actually in Dundee who not so much who do hip hop, but more kind of dance stuff that I've been in touch with recently. But I think where it feels that we're kind of more focusing kind of on just us getting stuff out and then kind of making those connections. So there's a couple of guys. There's a guy called DD Dragon in Dundee who's just kind of rebranded as that name, and he's somebody that I think he's got a good thing going on at the moment. It's worth checking out, actually.
I will do that. Yeah, because the reason I asked is because it does seem to me there's quite an interesting, particularly dance music and electronic music scene in the kind of North Scotland. You know, it's outside the Central Belt. Let's put it that way. Isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is really interesting. And you've no definite times for anything other than the next two singles. You've got that in, and then see what happens from there. Is that right?
Yeah. So we've got single on the 17th, the collaborative single the week after, and then I think probably by the end of this week we'll have another one kind of scheduled for maybe 2 or 3 weeks after that. So we're kind of just trickling out singles. So we don't have like a big project that we're working on as such. But yeah.
Well, do let me know when the new stuff's coming out, and I'll definitely give it a play on the show. Guys, thanks very much for taking the time to talk to me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Hey, thanks for having us.
Thanks so much, Alistair.
Really appreciate it.
And this is Broxden Knocks and All Up in My Head.